Okay, thank you, Carter, and thank you everybody for being here today. We are excited about the challenge of playing NC State. They've obviously been on quite a roll this year. Their victory versus Clemson speaks for itself. Very well balanced team, offensively and defensively and special teams. It will be an important weekend for us to fix some of the things that are ailing us. Like I said, I can't fault our effort, our heart, our mental toughness, but there are some obvious things that we've got to get corrected to give ourselves a chance to win these games. We're obviously been in two really close games that have left us 0-2 in the ACC, but this is life in our league. These games are normally close. They normally come down to fine margins, and it's on us as coaches to better prepare ourselves to win those finer margins to get us a victory on Saturday. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thanks, Coach. We'll start with Matt Shodell. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Manny. So I just rushed through the depth chart you guys sent out like 5 minutes ago. And I know this morning you mentioned you're going to sort of, give some younger guys some chances. So I just want to make sure I sort of gauge what you meant by that. It looked like most of them were on defense. So like Elijah Roberts, Isaiah Dunson, James Williams now officially with the first team, Marcus Clark, a co-starter at cornerback, and then obviously the special team stuff. So like, is there anybody on, that hasn't been mentioned that's going to have an elevated role that you see right now? Leonard Taylor remained, I guess, sort of a fourth teamer. I don't know, a co-third team or whatever you call that. And is there anyone else? And then also wanted to ask you, D. Wiggins, has been removed from the depth chart, so I wanted to check on his status as well. If you could talk about all that, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, the depth chart, as you know, is just that's something that we send out. It doesn't necessarily mean the way that the snaps are allocated. Young guys are going to be able to play more. They deserve their opportunity. Like I mentioned this morning, it's about those guys knowing what to do. There's two things. Right, the older guys, they've got to play well. They got to play fundamentally sound, and they have to let their knowledge of what to do in a game show. When they don't do that, the question is, are the younger guys, are they ready to take their place? And that takes two things. One, they've got to be able to fundamentally execute when they're in the game, but two, they also they don't have the experience, and they've got to be able to know what to do. So those guys, our young guys in general, are getting better. They are getting more and more knowledge. So whether it is LT or Elijah up front, and both those guys have shown the ability to make plays, and LT is getting better and better. You mentioned some of the names in the back end of Clark or Dunson. Obviously, James and Cam are getting more and more snaps at safety. We just got to get, it could be a guy like Chase Smith. We just got to get the simple things right. So, I think that's just kind of where it's going. We won't know for sure until the end of the week of what, how we'll be allocating the snaps. But there's some guys that we found out on Saturday, their roles just simply have to be reduced a little bit.
And on D. Wiggins, any update with him?
Yeah, so we took D and Mark off the depth chart. They're both not officially in the portal yet, but that's probably what we would expect to have happen.
Okay, next we'll go to David Lake. David, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Wanted to ask you about a trend, I guess, dating back to 2019, your first year as the head coach. First quarter in all your losses, you guys have been down or tied in all those losses, and just the slow start thing. I'm wondering, do you feel like you need to approach the game preparation phase? Does that need to be evaluated further? Is that an issue with these slow starts and the losses, in your opinion?
Yeah, I understand where you can trend things up in the last three. Let's look at this year, for example. Defensively, until this past weekend, the four games previous, we had, in the first two drives of the game, we had forced 7 punts and given up 1 score. We felt we started fast. I think we talked about in the App State, the Michigan State game, we had a chance to take commanding leads. Not going to say commanding, that's maybe overdoing it, but double-digit leads in both games early on. And a red zone failure prevented that. One became a win, one became a close loss. We started well in both those games. It was fairly obvious, and I think we have to take a step back for this team. Again, the trend you're putting, I don't think that things that occurred in 2019 affect us today. I'm looking at what goes on with this football team. This football team, offensively, it took us a while to get into the game. It took us a while to get into the game in the Virginia game. And that's to be expected. Like, it would have taken North Carolina a while to get in the game if they weren't playing with Sam Howell. I mean, Tyler is showing massive courage in the way that he stays after it during the course of these games. But he's still a rookie quarterback. I mean, we're still not playing with our starting quarterback. And so when he got his feet, underneath them and started feeling comfortable and got a sense for what they were doing, because they were changing up the things that they'd shown beforehand, I thought it was as good as we've looked on offense all year over the second half of the game. So, like I said, that doesn't deny, whatever trend it is that you're saying in terms of the way that we prepare. And obviously we prepare and talk about starting fast. We have a start fast period every day in practice, but you also have to look at the reality of the team that you're coaching at that current time.
Do you feel like the defense on the flip side is playing well in these first quarters here recently?
Well, it's what I told you. The last 4 weeks we were, right? This past game we did not. So, I mean, that's what I say. I mean, did we prepare? Did we even practice? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's hard to say, oh, well, we practiced to start fast the 4 weeks prior, but not this past week, from a preparation standpoint. So, I mean, it's if there was a smoking gun, it'd be easier to find, right?
Next, we'll go to Chris Stock. Chris, go ahead.
Coach, you made decisions in the offseason to call plays as a defensive coordinator and replaced assistant coaches to help improve recruiting. Just curious, how do you think those decisions have worked out so far?
I'm pleased with the, I mean, obviously you can see it right now. I mean, one of the things that we talked about from a recruiting standpoint is our recruiting in our secondary, and I think T-Rob and DVD have done a phenomenal job with that. I think that matters. I think that's a little bit, from the depth that we have right now and or the lack of depth that we have right now and some of the lack of competition we have right now. I think that's going to be a big help for us going forward. I think our front, again, I mean, when you look at our defensive line play and our front and the way where we were, the way that those guys are improving, I'm very pleased with that. I'm not pleased with the performance of our defense. Obviously, I mean, it's been well below our standards. And when you watch some of the gross attempts of tackling this past week and some of the fundamentals, people are just losing their training out on the field. And there's it's hard to unpack in every situation, what causes somebody to abandon their training like that. But at this point, it doesn't matter why. I mean, those are things that just can't be tolerated. And the thing you can do as a coach is you can limit playing time. So that's where this thing goes on. There's an ability for this defense to get better and still play in the remaining stretch of games the way we think we're capable of playing. But we simply have to stop. And I think you saw it for flashes in the second half of the game. We had 4 second halves in the 3.5. We should have had a fifth. Wasn't for a third down penalty. It's been way too inconsistent. And a lot of times it's been guys that have proven it. They've done it in games before. And for whatever reason, they're not getting it done. So it's our job as coaches to get it fixed.
Next up, we'll go to Manny Navarro. Manny, go ahead.
Hey, Manny. Obviously, you talked about guys abandoning their training. You guys are obviously working to get this right, taking playing time away, etc. But have you reached out to any other coaches, I don't know, you're friends with around the league about how to sort of, I don't know, just jumpstart a change? You've put a lot of faith into the older guys at the beginning of the season. They've obviously let you down. You're going to the younger guys now. But is there anything in practice, anything at all that you're going to try here maybe over the next few weeks to try to get this thing turned around?
We have. Let's say two things. One, I don't want to oversimplify the line between older guys and younger guys, because it's not all older guys, it's not all younger guys. But yes, I mean, to a point, I mean, again, I think there's one of the dynamics of this team is we do have some talented young guys who are earning their way more and more on the field, and creating more competition with the older guys. That's a thing. That's true that you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, you're always looking at what's going on around the country. You're always talking to coaches around the country. You're always looking to change the emphasis in certain drills that you've done. We've done that through the course of this year. And that's why, again, if it was guys that have not tackled, that have never shown that they can tackle, and they're not getting it done on the field, you say, man, we're not training these guys the right way. But when you got a guy that's got a long list of doing it the right way, and then at a certain moment, kind of just pull something out crazy, somehow that to me is that has to be reflected in the emotion of the moment. I mean, whether it's trying to do too much, or it's trying to press, trying to make the big hit instead of just secure a tackle. I mean, 2 plays on 3rd down on quarterback draws. I mean, there's 3 quarterback runs that just were, I mean, egregious. You know, and is it trying to be a hero in a season where, you know, the players are feeling the strain of not getting off to a great start? It doesn't matter what the why is, but there are guys that have made many tackles in their Miami career. Now you see a guy like James. James is a young guy. Okay, that's fine. Maybe he's trying to make something happen, you know, beyond what the play dictates. Should. That's fine. Young guys, you fix that. You love the aggressiveness of the young guys we have. Now they got to do their job as well, because that translates to winning. But you know, when you're seeing guys that have a long resume of being able to put guys on the ground and they're not getting it done, then, you know, that to me is something we got to try to unpack with them between the ears, more so than what just happens on the field.
Next up, we'll go to Tim Reynolds. Tim, go ahead.
Thanks, Carter. Manny, I imagine football is like a lot of walks of life. Like if you walk into a workplace every day and it's all bad, you're not going to work very well. I imagine it's the same with your staff. I imagine it's the same with players. I guess, how do you try to not make the building seem like a big funereal atmosphere right now? I mean, how are you trying to not let, you know, last week beat you again and the week before that beat you again? I mean, how do you, even in times like this, how do you try to keep the mood somewhat positive, somewhat enjoyable for guys to be around each other?
I think people follow their leaders. You know, that starts with the coaches, the assistant coaches, strength staff, the leadership of the team, and all that goes down. I mean, everybody can be angry and disappointed at the way that we start and the way that these games have gone. But the thing we get to do in football is you always get to go back to work, and there's always a next mission. You know, I think if you keep, a lot of times after losses, if you keep the emotions out of it, what I mean by that is, like on Sunday when we have Tell the Truth Sunday, when we're watching the film of you know, some of the plays from Saturday's game, it's not, this is, hey, listen, this is what the tape is saying. You know, we can critique the performance without critiquing the performer. And you've got to be able to make that distinction. And we all want the performance to be better. You know, the performer does. And if all the individual performers perform better, then the team's performance is better. And that's our job as a coach. But the only way that can happen is we have to own the performance, and the individual has to own their performance. And sometimes that can make people sensitive and uncomfortable. And that is what it is, because we're all uncomfortable after we lose. So I think it's, you know, I think when you're a part of a team, you always have a mentality of how do we fix it? How do we get it better? And then I think what does help is, and you know, again, losing stinks, but the fact that our guys do fight, the fact that we came back from way behind, the fact that we've had 2 drives in the last 2 games that if they had ended differently could put us 2-0 in the league. I think the players recognize that there's something there. I think the players recognize that there is a fight in this team and there is a bond in this team. We just got to play better to not put ourselves in those situations where we're in such a hole.
Next, we'll go to Susan Miller-Degnan from the Herald. Susan, go ahead.
Manny, unfortunate about Cam Harris. Is it a knee injury? You know, specifically, what's the injury? When is the surgery? If he is having surgery, or did he have it? And excuse me, did you talk to him at all about coming back? I guess next season. I guess that's premature. And I just wanted to also know about Derek, because yeah, I didn't see him out there. And sorry, there's too many I'm piling on, but you get the idea with Cam Harris. And I was wondering about, you know, Thad, Cody, and Jalen.
Yeah, Cam has a knee injury. They will require surgery. I think they're going to try to schedule the surgery for next week to let some of the swelling die down. And it's way too early to talk about anything other than just giving Cam our support right now, and we'll worry about what happens next afterwards. You know, in terms of Derek, Derek had a surgery last week. And I guess the way I explained it, the doctors didn't want him flying because of the inflammation or swelling, or I don't know what it is. So Derek wasn't with us up in Chapel Hill, but I imagine he'd be with us the rest of the way.
And then also the other, you know, like Cody and Thad, just some comments on them, how they've been doing. And obviously Jalen Knight, and he had a really good game, and he's going to be the main man, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen was outstanding. And to Jalen's credit, he's worked very hard in training camp, even when he was out for the first quarter of the season. I felt like a lot of people inside the program felt like Jalen was really going to do some things when he got back out in the field, and he was close against Virginia a few times. So to see him make an explosive pass play, catch a ball, and just kind of run by outrun the linebacker, and the corner just sort of stood there and he ran by him, and it was a big time play. And I thought he ran the ball well. He's got to be the guy now. I mean, that's what we have. I mean, obviously to have, two of your top three backs, we felt so good about all three. To have two of those guys go down is tough, but to have someone as talented as Jalen, really provides us with a chance to still to be good in the running game. I thought we really were much better in the running game, and then what he can do as a pass catcher. Cody, I thought had a really nice touchdown run against Carolina. Just kept his legs turning. I think he gives you a different change of pace from Jalen because he's a tough runner, tough inside the tackles runner, and I think Franklin the same way. We saw it in the time he had against Central Connecticut. So those are the three guys we got. Got to roll with them. Like in a lot of spots, we're kind of we're as thin as you can really be and still function as a team. But we are blessed with the guys that we do have.
Thanks, Manny.
Next, we'll go to Kobe Price. Kobe, go ahead.
Thanks, Carter. Hey, man, you had a couple of questions for you. The first one I wanted to ask was, do you expect for Avante Williams to play a role in this Saturday's game? I know that suspension, I think, 6 game just happened this past Saturday.
We'll get Avante out there. I'm not sure how big of a role he'll play. Avante was out of Avante's off training camp and wasn't allowed to practice with us for the first 2 weeks of the season. So really only been back for, I guess, maybe 4 weeks. As a full-time practice. So there's some things that he missed. But he'll be good to have him back out there, get him into competition. I think I would absolutely have a role on special teams to get again. It's still his first ever college game out there. So you have to temper the expectations. Just how you build your portfolio going forward. You have to you can't go on special. Just do a great job of whatever role he's asked to play, and I'm sure he'll expand from there.
And defensively, we've asked a bunch of questions about it, but how much is this when it's taking a game beyond? We make plays, right? We make plays in the drive, but we can't have those, penalties on third down or big penalties on whatever second down that you made the right play now there's going to be some first down out of it, and it had nothing to do with what I guess making the right play.
That's right. If you want to win, right? I mean, we gave a lot of points. Continuing drives that they got, and again, we lost by 3. These are the fine margin plays that are in our control that we can fix to give ourselves a much greater chance of victory. It doesn't matter against any of it. And again, what those are young guys even overachievers. I mean, there's some penalties where it's me bang. I thought Klaus was very close. That's going to happen around a quarterback, but some others that. And again, sometimes it's trying to do too much. Do your job, and we don't have to play hero ball. I think that's the whole thing. I mean, what good defenses are made of 11 guys that just take pride in doing their job. When the plays there to be made, they make it. Jafari Harvey did. He make a hero play. He just did a great job jumping off a cut block. The ball ended up right in his hand, and he caught it, ran in for a touchdown. He was just doing his job, and the play found him. And I do think there can be a sense of when people can start to press and do too much. That can show up in the tackling at times, and people can press and do too much, and that can show up in the penalties. And just, hey, listen, focus on what you have to do your job, and that's the pathway to victory. No one needs to wear a cape. No one has to justify expectations. No one has to justify some sort of recruiting hype. I mean, just fit in the framework of the team, and you'll be amazed at how the plays will now come, and the plays will be there to be made.
Next, we'll go to David Thompson. David, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, I was wondering if you could just talk about a little bit about NC State's defense and just, what's impressed you about what they've done this year.
Well, they're so experienced. They always play a little bit of a unique scheme that you don't see week in, week out. To my last question or my last comment, they understand their job. They do their job very well. They get you into third down. They do a nice job of mixing pressure, full out pressure, full out coverage. They kind of have everything in between. And I mean, they just by every metric this year, they've and then the thing you can tell what's happened to them is that their confidence. They're playing with a ton of confidence. You know, I mean, starting the year again, whether it was South Florida, you can see it in the Clemson game, really, other than just a couple plays in the La Tech game, and they've really stifled everybody that they've played. So very confident team, very talented team, very physical team. So there'll be a great challenge again for Tyler. It's another, you know, it's another defense for Tyler that doesn't present, you know, as just, oh, you're only going to get these two coverages or a couple of looks. I mean, they've got some things, you know, for a young quarterback, because they can, you know, when they're in a three-man front, they can rush them all and they can drop them all and everything in between. So you know, Tyler's got to make sure he's on point with his reads, and because things happen fast when you play against their defense.
We've got time for a couple more. We'll go to Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom, go ahead.
Thanks, Carter. Hey, Manny. Couple quick things on this morning when you said that I believe it was about when they were asking about the outside noise, the criticism. You said it was fair, and we know these kids are always on social media. So what do you do to make sure, you know, that doesn't seep in and that doesn't become a distraction to your team? And secondly, I guess this is going back kind of what you said last week, is when you start making these moves and you find out kids who played a lot find out maybe their reps are reduced. How close will you be watching them to make sure, like you said last week, that doesn't kind of infiltrate into the locker room, that negativity?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're always watching that. I mean, we were watching that from the sideline because there were some moves that got made during the game on Saturday. But the thing is, this time there's enough of them that want to win. I mean, that's, you know, that's the bottom line. I think that maybe answers both your questions. I mean, we have a lot of guys that want to win the game. That's why we have played the way we have played in the last two second halves, the last couple of weeks. And we got a lot of guys that have a lot of pride that want to win. They're not happy with the way the year's gone. No one in this building's happy with the way the year's gone. So I still don't, you know, I think from the outside noise perspective, the outside noise can't be any more, you know, upset than what's going on in here. Here we have a chance to do something about it, though, and that's why the players want to play with guys that, you know, look, I told the defense last night, it's hard to be out there on defense and lay my body on the line if I'm not sure suddenly the guy next to me is going to lay his on the line. And we have guys that have done that. I keep going back to it. If a guy had never done it, that'd be one thing. But I've seen guys that have thrown into tackles and done a great job of wrapping guys up. And when that's not happening, you know, that can breed mistrust. So if anything, it's the opposite. If anything, the players who do want to do it the right way, they need to be out there with other guys that they know, hey, listen, if I'm gonna give everything I have for this, physically in terms of how we tackle, I need to know that the other 10 guys out there will as well. And like I said, that's part of the fundamental of how a program grows, and getting guys that can replace guys that if all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I get to a point in my career where, you know, I don't feel like doing things a certain way, you know, I mean, that's what everyone's talking about, how it was here back in the past, where at some point you felt the pressure from the guy next to you. And that's just been one of the weird things about this team and the way it's come together. So I don't, you know, your point about the concern, I look at it the other way. I want there to be concern. You know, I want there to be concern, and you know, if guys aren't making plays and they end up having their role reduced and they're upset about it, you know, I mean, that's tough, man. But they get it because they understand the standard.
And we'll wrap up with Andrea Adelson. Andrea, go ahead.
Manny, with Tyler, is there anything that you guys can do to build off of what he's been able to do in the second halves of games so that he can get off to a faster start and so the offense can get off to a faster start?
I think it's always a great question. I think that's one thing you're always looking for as a coach. Are there easy ways you can build easy offense and doing? There was some of that a week ago. To be honest, I mean, Tyler would tell you, I think part of it is just being on the road the first time and trusting yourself and just ripping the ball. I mean, Tyler can rip the ball. And there were certainly some throws early on in that game where you could tell he was, you know, either trying to aim it or place it or whatever. So I think what he's learned these last couple of weeks is he can do it. And he just got to believe himself and trust himself. And there's no magic pill you can give to a quarterback to make him do that. They got to get in the game and know that they can do it in those situations. So, you know, my hope for Tyler is the way he has finished the last couple of weeks will give him confidence that he can start faster. Because, you know, if Reds get dialing up plays that got guys wide open, I mean, really in the first play of the game could have been explosive on not a very difficult throw. It's a throw he's made, you know, a million times in practice. And Tyler sees that, he knows, you know, but again, that's what's playing with a young quarterback. You're going to go through some of that, and that's going to, you know, that's going to cause our offense some starts and stops at times. That's just reality. There's not a lot of people in the country now that are not playing with their number one guy ripping up and down the field. And the fact that we still scored as much as we scored and had a chance to win the game at the end means we're doing the right things over there, and we got a guy that we can win with.